So I think we all have a role to make sure that we mentor them. But really a question for you. You know, for years we've been speaking about the mismatch between educational institutions and real life and how people go through jobs. In fact, most people say that that by the time you finish your education to the time you finish your career, anything you studied is completely irrelevant, and you've moved 3 or 4 jobs, or the way that you've looked at things are different. So while I think lifelong learning is important and here to stay, but what would be the fundamental things that you think we need to make some changes on?
Thank you. Is this on? Yes. My voice is louder than it was up there. Anyways, first of all, our great challenge is that we need employees to stay in our companies, because we have to invest in upskilling them and motivating them, or they have no value. And at the same time, they get bored and they want to move to another job. So we have to figure out how to grow these people and train them and unlock their value, because it's critical to our companies, but it's a different DNA, and we're going to have to work through that. When we look at universities, a lot of the hard skills have no more value because computers do it. AI does it. When I used to learn finite mathematics and other things, the computer does that. Even my phone does it now. So we need soft skills. We need creative skills. We need people who are constantly adapting and evolving. I think more important than a set of skills is the skill of constantly learning and adapting. So everyone is going to have to go online and learn and upgrade themselves permanently for the next 40 years, right, in our career path. And the biggest risk is the comfort zone, because so many people they get their job, they're comfortable with what they're doing, they feel self-actualization, but that's a danger zone today in the new economy. You have to constantly learn and grow. And so the schools are going to have to change the methodology of how they teach, from elementary up to university. We're going to need soft skills that are done in a way that computers and AI can't do it. And then in other cases, we need to leverage optimal benefit of computers and robots. So look at a warehouse. A lot of the things humans do are now taken over. But what humans do well is adapt to crises and shifting things and shifting supply chains. And AI hasn't done that yet. But the whole industry that I'm from, 80% of the jobs have changed in the last 10 years. Singapore will be having the second largest port in the world with no human beings. It'll all be automated. So we really need to spend time, and I think on the task force, it's one of our goals, and it's in the paper, identifying what are skills that really give you the power and the benefit of evolving in your career, and how do you keep constantly learning and upgrading along the journey. And that's the biggest challenge, and I think we need to redesign the school system in the next 3 to 4 years, not the next 10 or 12. You know, politically, this is a big challenge, because we have to reteach our teachers so that they can teach the next generation. But I don't have the answer, I only have the hope.
I think we can work with hope. And by the way, India does have a new education bill, the first one since independence almost, of a radical reorganization of the school system. But I think it will take several years for this to really come into effect. We do have, about 5-7 minutes. Does anyone in the audience have a question for my distinguished panel? Please, the gentleman who raised their hand. You give him a mic. Let's be really brief with the question. And who would you like?
It is a very crystal clear question. You ask the question to the person, fundamental things what you require in the future. 1 + 1 = 2. That is the fundamental thing. Means we are working on doing on many things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, IoT, blah, blah, blah. But for machine learning, basic is statistics. In statistics, probability. Probability based on 1 plus 1, mathematics. So science and mathematics 1 to 10 standard, what we study, that the basics we require. My name is Mrutyunjaya Hikdal Gutti. I am born and brought up in Dharwad, Karnataka. My capital city is Bangalore. I stay in Bangalore. I roam around the world, all metro cities. I'm a moonlighter. I work with the top 10 banks in the world. Like I was in Swiss Bank, London, and I was with the.
Your question, sir.
My question is, what is the fundamental? What next? I want to know from you all.
What next for what? Okay. Right. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, there's one gentleman who's got the mic already.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Vishal Sanghvi. I am an innovator and economist. My question about validating the new future of work. There are a lot of technology available for the cloud computing with the communication, surveillance, CRM, ERP, but it's required to validate in some of the organizations. And it is very important once validate, those old tools. We can also create a lot of millions of jobs for the women, other things. But there is a requirement of the free capital for validating, because we go to something paid setup or new system to any company. First of all, they require something. So is there any such kind of free capital to be created where there is for a few months of time? Because we have to also validate, okay, how impacted these organizations. So this same study will be also copied by the other company. So is there any free capitals available where we can validate this old, convergence technology to create more jobs for remote work and more women's works in the world?
Right. Validation. Your question was about validation, and
Yes.
if there are any organizations that are actually doing this.
No, there are technologies, lot of technology available where we can efficiency proven about remote work practice for the women and other area actually. But at least if you go to any companies to validate these, really, firstly they ask about what is your validation in other company. Initially, we want to give this free access to them. There is a cost involved to deploy technology, but there is a requirement of this innovative practice to be held in an organization. So we require some capital, where.
No, it's a good point. I think that CII has a skills council, and I would, urge you to meet Mr. Saugata, who would be really able to tell you to go into this in detail.
Okay.
Please make sure you see Saugata. We have 2 questions, that's it. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My name is Naresh Kumar Gupta. I work for the disability people, and I would like to know from anyone on the dais or from the audience, what are we doing to raise education and for the skilling of the rural people or the people from the villages? Thank you so much for listening and trying to answer my question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. I think first you said disability and rural. Okay. So many organizations are doing a lot. Government is also doing, but under public-private partnership, our NGO, for example, started Tare Zameen Par project last, 10, 12 years. And we have empowered and skilled many differently abled children. We don't call them disabled, or specially abled children, because their mental faculties are very much strong and better. And we have trained them in courses like graphic designing, IT, data entry operator, front offices. So this is number one. Number two, on rural, I have been advocating to NSDC when I was board, because we had run about 70 rural centers in the rural area. But the present schemes are all this NSDC schemes are primarily, they are so, the standards, they have kept it very good, but they may not be apt for rural. So I have been advocating to the government, and we'll raise in parliament that we should have focus on rural skill centers, which may not be as immaculate with, like they want, all the air conditioning and biometrics, and although those things can't be adhered to rural. But yes, we agree in principle, we have to do the skilling, especially the artisans work, the craftsmen work, the women in rural area. Thank you.
Mr. Bradley.
If you'll forgive me, I just wanted to make a comment also to you, because it's really important. How do we empower people all across the country, all across the world, not just in the major cities? In this place, years ago, with the World Economic Forum, I had the privilege of sitting next to Mr. Azim Premji from Wipro. And I was amazed because he said, we invested in all this talent in Mumbai and Delhi and Bengaluru, etc. And we forgot the second, third, and fourth tier cities with incredible talent. So he had funded scholarships for over 200,000 students across the country. And he said, I need that for the future talent of my company, right? And I know this has changed so much with all the government support and efforts. And that is how you have so much talent at tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities and the villages that need access to the internet, that need the opportunity. And there are some amazing entrepreneurs that are going to come from there. So I heard that years ago. I'm working with one Indian startup, and he's trying to help the farmers and the fishermen access the internet in a cheaper way by linking the satellite system with cheaper tools, because if they have access to the internet, they can be more productive and they can also upskill themselves. So I think both entrepreneurs are finding ways to do this, as well as, of course, the government being very aggressive. But there's a lot of talent out there, and you raised a very important point about how do we pull that talent up in this new era.
Thank you, and it is important that no person is left out. I'm really sorry, we have time for just one more. The gentleman standing up.
Anil Honda. Regarding the workforce entry and exit level age factor, are we thinking on that on any lines? You want to revise the age?
Sorry?
On the age factor of the working force, entry and exit level, we have an age factor, yeah? So are we thinking of revising that age factor in any way?
So, I think that as jobs go by and the health standards, many countries have done it, and as they have aging, the younger countries and the developing countries, we have not looked at the problem, but personally from a healthcare perspective, I hear you, and this is something that in our organization that we're thinking about, because as people get older, they have the ability to work longer, and especially in sectors where for many more productive years, and in sectors that have acute shortages, you do not want a doctor or a nurse to retire while they're still able. So I think that it is based on criticality of the actual jobs. It's also based on the population strength, because we're talking globally and not just for India. But I think one thing we have to recognize, that while India thinks of itself as a young population, we should also think of ourselves as an aging population. There are more than 90 million people who are over the age of 60, and in another 3 years there'll be 120 million people, and that's larger than the size of most countries have people over 60. So this will become a problem anywhere in the world, not just China or any of the larger populated countries or the smaller countries. So thank you for bringing it up. We will. I'm super sorry. I love to stick to time. I'm going to give closing remarks, but what I suggest you all do is that we're available to talk to you all offline. Then I'm happy to do it one-on-one.
What have you done as Apollo?
To retain,
Yeah. In Apollo, what special have you done to retain your workforce? Because retention is much more difficult than recruitment.
I think it's a long question, and in healthcare, it's something that you will find people, global mobility. So nurses will move. We continue to train more people. We continue to work with them, upskill, do all the right things. And I think that more than motivation, like people have found a purpose in healthcare. So for us, connecting to the purpose really makes a big difference. And this is something that you'll find that our attrition really is much lower. But I don't want to get into that. Happy to have a one-on-one. I want to bring this excellent session to a close. And I think that what's most important for this large audience here is you've listened to disruptions and opportunities. People have spoken about, my distinguished speakers have spoken about the importance in your vocabularies. When you think about reskilling, upskilling, mobility, please think that you have to think about sustainability, because this is a world where we need sustainability. When you're thinking through your policies, remember that AI will become critical to just about everything that we do today. Anybody that has a mobile phone or anyone that has a basic education is going to think through how AI could disrupt every single industry. We have to keep in mind that diversity and inclusion, and by inclusion, I also mean the people who are lesser abled, people who are in geographies that have no access. So all these of inclusion and diversity, especially women, we need to think about. We need to have those conversations at the top table. You need to put it into your mainstream lists of when you're designing your policy for employment. And of course, when we spoke about aging societies. So having said that, please take all this, and whatever you've heard today doesn't mean anything if it doesn't make a difference. First, as in CII, what we always say is we stand for the country first, we stand for industry next, and then we stand for our own personal companies, because you need to have sustainability. So I sincerely hope with that, in this opening session, some answers to all three have resonated with this entire audience. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Ms. Kamineni, and thank you to all the panelists. It's been a great session, and I'd like to request Madam to kindly give away a few gifts, a token of appreciation from all of us to each of the speakers. Jaldi, jaldi. Stay there. And with that, we bring this session to a close.